Bill Maher takes on CNN in a moment that is not to be missed. Kaitlan Collins, the anchor, is criticized for the obvious political slant on her network. Maher exposes what many viewers already suspect with incisive humor and indisputable facts. CNN no longer even makes an effort to maintain objectivity. He draws attention to the sharp discrepancy between the network's unrelenting criticism of Donald Trump and its laudatory coverage of Kamala Harris. Collins fumbles to defend CNN as the discussion progresses, but her arguments are ineffective. The conversation ultimately comes to a standstill of denial and evasion, leaving Maher with little option but to press on. This exemplifies the hypocrisy of the media. Don't pass it up. Kaitlan, you don't force Democrats to respond to difficult questions. Therefore, don't say that you do. This is the true problem. To assert neutrality, one must do more than simply provide the other viewpoint. Bill Maher is not referring to it. There is more to the issue than just having visitors from both sides. It has to do with the framing and presentation of the news. The bias is ingrained in the reporting itself, influencing stories in a way that favors one viewpoint over another, sometimes overtly.
He said something like, you guys at CNN just report the news straight. And the crowd burst into laughter. Look, I'm on CNN now. I guess we're on it right now. I mean, they show this show the next night. I don't know how we get away with it with all the fucks, but they do. And all these dirty jokes. But I'm glad, and I'm a big rooter for CNN. But that tells you a lot, doesn't it? I mean, how do you guys think you are doing in that arena of like, this is a terribly divided country. We're not only politicized, a lot of people just hate the other side. And CNN, in my view, should be the place where both sides can watch. How do you think you're doing with that?
How is CNN is the place where both sides can watch. And I think, my show is evidence of that. We have lawmakers on from both parties. We'll have Elizabeth Warren on one night. We'll have Ted Cruz on another night. I think lawmakers from both parties should take questions, and you should push both of them.
The underlying bias in how stories are presented, how issues are prioritized, and how competing views are contested is not offset by the mere presence of conservative speakers on a panel. It wouldn't just be about who gets our time if CNN really aimed to be fair. It would concern the treatment, interrogation, and positioning of those voices in the larger discourse. These days, when a story breaks, journalists are frequently allowed to add their own thoughts, allowing individual viewpoints to influence how news is presented. Rather than reporting with complete objectivity, they deliberately or subconsciously filter information through their own prejudices, which shapes the audience's perception of events, presenting the facts as they are, without bias, and then letting different points of view have a true conversation would be a truly impartial approach. It would require restraining oneself from the temptation to gently lead viewers to a preconceived opinion. Ideally, reporters would present the facts, present various viewpoints, and let readers make their own judgments. CNN doesn't do that, though. It is challenging for viewers to obtain an unvarnished, objective account of events because the network, like many others, frames stories in ways that support particular political narratives.
CNN being a place of credibility. I mean, look at what just happened in Chicago. We had 300 people from CNN on the ground covering that convention. There were several reporters from just our team alone on the floor, bringing it in real time to people. And I think CNN puts resources behind things and just brings a level of news that you don't get anywhere else. And I think CNN does a great job.
I'm talking about the people on CNN and what I know what the conservative side of America thinks. And I don't blame them. I watched Kamala's speech last night. It ended at 8:09, I guess 11:09 in the East. It wasn't until 11:23 till the one conservative guy, what's his name?
Scott Jennings.
This Lonely Scott, I call him.
David Urban was there too.
Wait a second. I watched from 8:09 to 8:23, they were just gushing about how great a speech it was. And I think she did fine. I didn't think it was as good as they were making it out to be. But if I'm a conservative in America and I'm watching CNN, just for the straight middle of the road, that's what I hear for 15 minutes, is it's great, and then Lonely Scott. It does look, and when you see the path, it does look like tokenism. It's kind of like the same as The View. It's like it's almost better to have nobody there, like MSNBC, than to have this.
Well, I don't think you can say I don't think you could say it's better to have nobody there than also lament the fact that you don't think the conservative guy, Scott Jennings, who is great, and we have him on my show all the time, spoke up early enough. I think it was a Democratic convention. They turned to Democrats, people like...
There is a noticeable change in CNN's coverage of the Republican National Convention if you go back and review it. CNN's analysts were quick to jump in with criticism after important speeches ended, pointing out things they didn't like, pointing out perceived flaws, and presenting the conversation negatively. When it comes to their coverage of conservative events, they frequently face this type of instant backlash. A network with a blatant bias finds it extremely difficult to keep up the appearance of objectivity. Right now, being honest about it would be the best course of action. They would at least gain some respect for their openness at that point. For instance, MSNBC doesn't act impartial. Their audience is aware of their overtly left-leaning views. In contrast to CNN, which maintains its neutrality while continuously promoting one side's story, that degree of transparency attracts a larger and more devoted audience. Let's examine the figures now. In 2021, there were 80 million households with CNN subscribers. That figure fell to 68 million by December 2023, a 12 million decrease in just 2 years. That is a substantial drop, not a slight one, which says a lot about how viewers view the network. Even more concerning is the fact that CNN is currently ranked third among cable news networks, behind MSNBC and Fox News. Only 580,000 people watch them on average each day, which is a startling 50% decrease from the year before. This pattern isn't limited to CNN. Viewership across all cable news networks has been decreasing, but their loss is unusually steep. Contrast that with alternative media platforms and independent creators, whose audience engagement is on the rise. The emergence of innumerable independent voices indicates that people are looking for media alternatives. The reason for this change is that viewers are fed up with being duped and controlled. With its selective anger and meticulously crafted storylines, the traditional media model is fading into obscurity. CNN and similar networks are becoming extinct. Platforms that put an emphasis on honesty, openness, and sincere conversation will eventually supplant them entirely.
What explains why certain Republicans like Tucker Carlson have become so pro-Putin? Good question. What does explain that?
Your buddy. Man, I don't know. Tucker hates my guts. I mean, I think we all know that.
Well, that says a lot for you.
Yeah, you guys. I don't know how to explain Tucker. I've never met Tucker, never even spoken with him. He just trashes me because I think it's a bad idea if Russia wins a land war in Europe. And I would remind everybody, I know this is getting serious, but I would remind everybody, if you don't stop Russia there, right, and we're spending maybe 5 to 10% of our GDP, defense spending just on supporting Ukraine so they can fight their own battles. If you didn't do that, if you never gave them any Stingers, never gave them any Javelins, you'd have a Russian army that is fully intact and also very aware that we don't defend our friends, and they'd be on the border of former NATO countries. If you want to get closer to war, that's how you get closer to war. So what do I make of some random, his opinion who got fired from Fox News? I don't know.
That opinion, which I agree with, is out of step with your own party.
It's about half and half. I mean,
really?
You can see it in our votes, yeah. I mean, it's an ongoing discussion. And Trump, by the way, has never ran away from it. Trump has always said, first of all, he threatened Putin when he was in office. He said, look, we're going to bomb.
With what, a kiss?
In a culture like Russia's, that would be a threat.
Right.
But no, he said, purportedly said, I'm going to bomb the shit out of Moscow if you invade Ukraine. In any case, we know he didn't invade Ukraine while he was president. He increased the lethal aid to Ukraine by a lot, actually. And he's never said he's backing away from Ukraine. What he has said is it should be a loan, that we should have mining rights, Europeans should pay more, all things I think we all agree with.
Okay.
Except that whole impeachment thing.
Which part? The ones that Democrats impeached him for?
Withholding aid to Ukraine.
Well, the thing that Biden did before that.
Point.
Yeah,
I forgot about that.
Yeah. Well, but that's diplomacy. And Biden did the exact.
That's not diplomacy.
Biden did the exact same thing, literally to the exact same country.
No, he didn't.
Yes,
really?
he did.
What did he do?
He was bragging about withholding aid unless they fired that the prosecutor.
A corrupt prosecutor,
right,
which is what your party complains about.
That's
when
diplomacy.
aid to them.
So American presidents have that power to say, no, we're going to withhold aid because we don't like what you're doing. If our State Department and I'm not bashing Biden for doing that either, by the way.
But Trump was withholding aid because he wanted an investigation
somebody for doing what
into
is
Hunter
within
Biden.
their powers as the president. Sorry,
But I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. Do you think CN is truly as unbiased as they claim, or do you agree that their coverage leans in a particular direction? Drop your opinions in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.